speaking of relationships, Mary, you got some advice for spending that money in a relationship.
Yes, we're getting good advice ahead of Valentine's Day. Hopefully some of this will help, possibly if you're having some financial issues or maybe just want to have that conversation with your spouse and say, hey, you know what? We're going to do this together. We're going to get better. We've got Paul Durso of Insight Folios with us. And Paul, I first just want you to start by telling folks kind of what you do and how that you're an expert in this area so we can feel good running into this.
So my firm manages money for clients, but to be very honest, I manage relationships almost as much as I help manage money because money is such a big part of relationships. So I never thought I would be in a business that would deal with relationships, although I love them, but that's a big part of what we do because people handle money differently, depending on the relationship. Some it's one person, some it's both, some it's none, and they just try to figure it out as they go. But regardless, it's a big package that all goes together.
Right, and so part of this is the strategy. And so, we work on things as couples, and sometimes the finances get left by the wayside. That can create a lot of issues. So I'd love to know some of your advice for couples who may be watching and maybe struggling with finances.
Well, the ones that are struggling with finances, typically it's going to be one of two things if you're not communicating with your spouse. It's either going to be because you're living in fear or you're living in greed. So it's, I'm going to do this no matter what the consequence is, or I really want to do this, I'm not sure, so I'm just going to do it and hope it just works out. So depending on the method and rationale behind a lack of communication, you just have to, as a couple, if they're married, if you're not married, it doesn't really matter. That's a different conversation. But if you are married, you need to open up and communicate and just be honest. Like, I really want to do this. I really think we should do that, and just communicate together, because the worst thing you can do is just charge into something and just let it figure itself out.
Because it won't.
No, all that's going to happen is divide.
Yeah, it's going to be worse. So should one person handle the finances or both? What do you think about that?
I guess it depends on the couple. So if there's a couple, we were talking earlier, my wife does all the day-to-day finances. She pays all the bills. I'm more of the vision and tomorrow thinker, and we communicate on that. I trust her implicitly. So for my advice for viewers would be, who is more responsible in the day-to-day operations? It might be one, it might be two. You might be able to do it together, but somebody should take the charge, because if you don't have a good way of working together, things will get missed. So either you're in charge of these 10 bills, I'll do the rest, or you do all that and I'll think forward for us how my wife and I do it. But you have to communicate and have jobs. They don't take care of themselves. You have to divide and conquer, or come together and organize. And
know what's going on. You got to at least know what's going on both sides.
It would probably be a good idea.
Good idea. Okay, well, and we talked about, you said couples that aren't married yet, maybe that's not a thing yet, but a lot of couples get engaged on Valentine's Day. So what should somebody know kind of walking into a marriage?
Transparency is key. So if you're going to get married late in life, early in life, regardless, you don't go in with your way is the way it's going to work. You go into this, it's a 100-100 relationship. It's not a 50-50. So you go in and say, here's what I've done. Your partner or spouse is going to say, this is what I've done. And then you come together and say, okay, here's what we're going to do together, because it's all different now.
Yeah.
When you come together with another person, everything changes.
And it's all on your credit report and everything.
We run by our credit, and that's getting more and more difficult to have good credit and get things done if you have bad credit.
All right, before we run out of time, any other financial tips you want people to know to keep the love in the air on this Valentine's Day?
I would just hit home, communicate, because I think finance is the #1 destroyer of relationships. So there's nothing more careful that needs to be in the forefront of a conversation with your spouse of what can go wrong and what can go right.
All right, so be willing to have the conversation.
Be open.
That's a big thing. All right, Paul Durso, Insight Folios, thank you so much for being with us today.